Howdy, howdy, it's a Rodfather 916. You know, when I was a kid, there were songs like Are We Like Sheep? And as I've gotten older, I realize in many ways there's a lot of truth into that. People do things in groups. They're more comfortable in groups than sort of being on their own. Um, they drive in groups. You know, when I was married and my kids were young, we'd go to Costco's on Sundays, which is my least favorite day shopping. I'd rather have my nose hairs French braided by a cranky stylist than to go to Costco where people are loading up on free apple pies and samples and backing into you and not saying it's like but I remember when you went to go pay for the items there at Costco, there'd be these long lines in the center. And I would always go along the sides and I'd look, and along the sides, there'd be few people waiting in the cash registers. And so I would go in, talk to my fellow man and say, there's plenty of cashiers open. You don't have to wait as long. And I would say to a couple of people, and they would look at me, and one would say, well, thank you for the information, but we prefer to stand here in this long line. This is where we're comfortable. Well, I never had that kind of time. I got other things to do. I've got a wife who may continue shopping, and kids are getting on my last nerve. The last thing I want to do is be in Costco any moment, any minute longer. So we are like sheep. Human beings will see something on television or maybe on social media and says, that coffee brown is the color of the season. And you must have it. You're nothing unless you have this coffee brown. And hundreds of people will go buy it. Now, they don't buy this coffee brown because this costs $5 at Walmart. But the designer, maybe with somebody's name on it. And they'll spend all this money and within a few months, nobody's buying it. And I think of the fads of the past, the pet rock. A lot of you don't remember that. You go into a store and you buy a pet rock. It's an actual rock. And it's a pet rock, and it was on television. Everybody had to have it. And then there were the pound puppies or that silly dog that people had to have. They had their own names, and people were fighting for them. Collectibles. Because, on Oprah and all the talk shows, this is what you had to have. And people are like sheep. And, in communities, there are sort of standards. Now, there's no official book, but people are telling you this is how it's done. This is how you should live your life. This is what everybody's doing. If you are not doing that, then you are less than. Early in the last century, if you were over 21 and a female and not married, you were a spinster. There was something wrong with you. No man has chosen you to be your bride. And since women had little rights, they were destined to be with their parents until they died. But what if a woman didn't want to work? She didn't want to have a baby. She wanted to. Something was wrong with her. So even today, we have communities where there's a standard. There's when you're young, your friends have girlfriends, and your girlfriends have boyfriends, and if you don't have a boyfriend or you're not in a relationship, there's something wrong with you, and you feel empty inside, like you're the only person on planet Earth without anybody who loves you. And so, girls and boys, just to have a relationship, settle for anyone who says yes. Yes, I'll be your daddy. Yes, yes, yes. But they were young, don't know any better, right? But people as they get older, you know, they have boyfriends and girlfriends, and some people are having babies. There are communities where a traditional married couple are the exceptions, not the rule, which is a story that I'm telling. So stay tuned. It'll be up in a couple of months, where the government actually came in and devised a way to remove the black man from the household. And I think as a community, we're suffering from that today. There's a lot of animosity because when I grew up, and probably your grandparents, because I'm probably your grandparents' age, your great grandparents, everybody was pretty much married. There are a few single households. I mean, in my neighborhood, there were black families and everybody was married. It was a time, and I won't spend a whole lot of time here because, like I said, I'll be doing another workshop. I'll be doing another extended video. But there was a time when I was young, a black man told me to go to college and get an education because I was building the race, and that was the beginning. And if you look back at our leaders in the 1950s and the 1960s, the men were educated. And that was threatening to the government. So the government had to remove the black man, the leader, don't be offended, the leader of the household. And so in some communities, black people are in disarray because the traditional head was removed. But I'm going to move on. So you're in a community where there are very few intact families. Kids had maybe kids too early without getting married. Women and men making the same mistakes because that's what everybody else does in the community. And so if you live in a community where no one's getting married, it's expected, that you settle with somebody, or maybe you just take them because they ask. And in some cases, men and women make mistakes. They get with someone because they have somebody, even though that person may not be worthy, may not be honorable, maybe even be disrespectful or violent. It beats being alone. And is expected in the community. That's the norm for the community. There are many communities, particularly black communities, where people think single women are the norm. And then you have these young black men who are laying down their seed without really connecting with their family. The reason for that, in my opinion, is because the home is without leadership. And you can't, if you don't know or never seen examples of households at work, how do you make that happen? But you can change it. We can break the cycle. You hear people in all races, these women ain't worth it, and these men ain't shit. Yet they keep going to the same well where these men and women are and choosing the same type of man. and getting the same results. Hopefully, hoping that this other person that they chose from the same well will be different. So you have men having children, and you having women having children, and disrespectful. And but because in many cases, and don't get too mad at you. I know some people will get mad at me. Don't get too mad at me. But sometimes in the world, and I'm gonna say it again, for it just bears repeating, we only know what we know. If you have parents who are detached, no man in their lives because mom is disappointed by the choices she made. She chose another bum who's not helping her with the family. And then you have the man who's going, well, every time I come over to help, it's not good enough, and I'm calling all these names, so I'm not gonna deal with my deal with my wife. I didn't say he was right because he made the baby and he should be committed to that child. But that's the way it is. And some people, you hear people saying, we've all heard it. Again, I'm repeating myself. Ain't nobody shit here. But they keep going to another well. Most people, if they are shopping and they are mistreated by the store or this place, they choose another store. Not true in some communities. They keep going to the same place, meeting the same people, choosing the same people, getting the same results. And then they're mad at the world for the choices they made, men and women. So, how do you? Why do you make the choices that you make? Aren't you worthy of someone who's honorable, who's responsible, who wants to build a life with you? How do you stop the cycle? It starts here. Just because everybody in your community is having babies at 17, 18 doesn't mean you have to be. Just because they're selling for the guys at the club, the neighborhood club where they get together on weekends, and these men are not working. Not all men, I'm not taking a pain saying every black man or Hispanic man in this neighborhood is like that. No, I'm not doing that. But let's say the majority are. Why are you still going to that club? Why are you laying down with somebody before you know their values? And possibly connecting your trolley up with somebody for the next 18 to 20 years that you just don't like, but you're hoping for a different outcome. Maybe this will be different. Maybe. Maybe this will be different. Why aren't you worthy of something better? Because here's the problem, and you see it, but in some cases it became the norm. It exists in my family, probably exists in your family, where someone makes a bad choice and they're bitter and angry, and the older you get, the more angry and bitter you become. This anger, your kids learn from you. They learn to hate their father, because you have said in front of them, he ain't shit. They've learned if they have a relationship, if a man has a relationship with women, some of these men have said, your mom is a bitch. So these kids are learning that being called a bitch is normal, having a father who's detached is normal, and having a mother who's angry, And if the mom hates the dad and the dad is not active in their life, they hate the dad and resent the dad and say he's no good. But it goes back to the choice you make. It's like going to a store, ordering something, getting it home, something you really had, and you don't like it. Now you can take it back, but you just don't feel like it, so you keep it. But you're angry at the store and you'll never go to that store again because the choice you made, you don't like it. So how do you stop the madness? How do you stop it? How do you stop it? You develop standards early on. You don't want someone, you don't want someone to build a life with who hasn't been employed for a few years. Not somebody who's job to job to job to job. Somebody who's living with their parents. Now, people fall on hard times. I've been homeless in my lifetime. At 50, I was homeless. I'm far from perfect. But you want somebody who's employed, someone who is mature enough to have a baby. If he's got 19 babies over here and he doesn't take care of them, why would you hook your wagon up to his truck? And I can only say this enough. If you meet somebody with a dream, let them realize that dream before you connect yourself with them. Don't get a man or woman and you're going to be their parent that they've ignored and tell them how they're going to pay bills and handle their money. It's not happening. Then you get angry because she agreed on, cutting back, but she still got to have her nails done, her hair done, and that's more important than paying rent or making her car payment. So you make the payment. Same thing with the guy. The guy, he's not working. He just don't feel like going in. And guess what? He don't do nothing. All you're gonna do is nag and scream, but you'll pay it. And then you're resentful of him, and he knows you're resentful, and she knows you're resentful, and God forbid you have kids. They're caught in the middle. Why aren't you worthy? I have a niece. I'm not gonna mention her age, but she's unique. Early on, she had standards. No one called her a bitch. Some of the people go, what's wrong with a bitch? I get called a bitch. It's not a problem. Well, she goes, well, that's good for you, but that's not working for me. That's the standard. You call her a bitch, she doesn't argue, she doesn't scream, she doesn't even acknowledge your presence. Whatever she has, she packs up and she leaves. Of course, people are talking about it, but she has enough confidence to let that be okay. Because people are going to talk about you anyway. And over time, when she walks into a room, they may call this one a bitch and that one a bitch and that one a bitch, but they address her by her name. And she will leave a date if she finds somebody disrespectful. Is that easy? A lot of us know. But she sets a standard. If she doesn't get married, she said until she's 40, she's okay because she'd rather have a happy life alone where she can do what she wants, spend her money, invest it, and live a life that's full of peace than live with as she would say, live with a piece of man that's causing her grief that she grew up with watching. Is that horrible? Same thing with the man. Because if you are thinking of commitment, you want to honor your woman. She is your queen. You don't want to disrespect her. And he is he is her king. No disrespect, no embarrassment. They're building a life together, saving their money to build a future together. Because a Louis Vuitton, new wheels, a new car to make payments doesn't buy a home. My parents had a home. That's why I wanted a home. They sacrificed. My parents drove cars that were 10 years old. They also bought 3 or 4 homes. Made me and my brother have a home. My brother bought home. A family unit who is building a life together, raising future kings and queens who are honorable, who are respectful. My former wife and I struggled. Neither one of us are perfect. Far from perfect. Can't say perfect. We're not better than anybody, especially me. I'm not better than anybody. But we like to think that we build a foundation for our children who are thriving. There were no yelling, cussing at each other. And so far that I know, my children don't yell and cuss at their spouses. And they did in front of me, they'd be in a world of hurt. Because my response would be, you have never heard us talk to each other that way. You have never heard of us yell at each other, scream at each other, disrespect each other. You haven't seen it. But you have generations, yes, I'm an old guy, check the gray out, of disrespect in public, in private, anywhere. Because for him, that's what he saw growing up. For her, that's what she saw growing up. And their kids, while they're in the middle of Walmart, that's what they're learning. So you can choose. You can choose to be different. My former wife and I, we took a different path. I didn't beat on my kids the way my parents did, who learned from slavery how to control us because that's what black people were taught. They were controlled through violence. I've spanked my kids, but it was last resort. I spoke to them. A lot of my family didn't agree with it. But my kids are not violent. And I'm not a perfect person. So how do you change this? How do you change it? Jennifer Jennifer Lewis said something recently, and I'm going to get it wrong, but I get the gist of what she said. She said if you are sitting in shit, don't stay too long. Come on out of that. Because what happens if you sit in shit too long, it loses its smell. You've gotten adjusted to it. Everybody else can smell the shit, but you can't because you've been sitting too long. Come on out of that. Change is difficult, but change is possible. Black people and a lot of people come to America. America are a resilient bunch. Despite all the things the challenges we had, same thing with immigrants, particularly immigrants of color. I relate to more Hispanic because I'm in California, who my mother cleaned up houses. My mother and father picked cotton. They did menial labor. And that's important to me because I don't want to ever forget where I came from. But look at what they brought. You can change. You can be different. You have to ask yourself, am I worthy? What do I want? If it's material things, if you're meeting somebody or a woman because she's pretty, she's fine, she's got a hot body, and he's got a nice car and he's got a hot body, you got it wrong. If it's about um, if it's about Louis Vuitton or a nice car or a pretty house, you got it wrong. If you're saying I want someone who has a future, not someone who is going to be successful one day. You want them successful and working toward it now. And you want to make sure they've been doing this not for a couple of months, but 4 or 5 years, they're now a success. That's who you want to make up. You want to make sure they respect you, not just in public, but all the time. Because some people believe that verbal abuse is more harmful than physical abuse because it's here. You want to demand that he has a plan and you want to see if your plans match before you lay down together and even consider having a child who's going, how come my daddy doesn't love me? How come my daddy treats my his other kids better than me? If you've been through that, why would you want to do that again? Is this thing on? If you know what it feels like, why would you want to do that to your child? If you had no relationship with your dad and your mom doing the best she can, doing the best she can, is struggling with her multiple kids with multiple men. If you know what that feels like, so why do you want to repeat that? But people do. It's not that you think you're better, and you have to be careful. Come closer. I need to tell you something that's really important. There are people who don't want you to succeed. Sometimes they come disguised as your parents, your aunties, your cousins, even a best friend. Instead of celebrating your growth and your success, they want to keep you in the same neighborhood, living the same way or less than they are. Watch them closely. Girlfriends, guy friends, besties. She's good. She's got 900 kids. She's always at the club. She does drugs, but she's getting better. Wait a while before they get better before you decide. Not something in progress. How long you've been better? 4 or 5 years. Oh, well, let's talk. Same thing with men. Let's talk. You are worthy of it. And if you're stuck, some of us are stuck. I was stuck. I was stuck in depression. I couldn't make a move. Did you know that God created therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists who help you find your way, unblock things that maybe your family caused blockage and it didn't make sense? That thing that doesn't make sense, they help you with that. Your pastor, your dad, your mom, someone else are not trained to do that. You wouldn't go to an eye doctor to have your kidneys removed. You want to go to someone that's trained so you can have a better life. I went to a lot of therapists until I found the one. Some of the therapists are bad. You know, some want to give you drugs before they know what your issues are. No, I'm not going here, but thank you very much. But no, we're not a match. And I found one. No drugs. Unlocked a whole lot of shit in here. Unlocked a whole lot of shit. No shame. Best thing that ever happened to me. Because my former wife was like, I don't get him. I can't It's invisible. I can't see him. She was not capable of fixing this. Some good things. As for material things, if you're working together, saving money, investing things, buying houses, living a moderate life, at one point you're gonna get a little gray. Your kids are gonna be gone, and guess what? Then you can have that nice car because you made an investment. You had a goal. You didn't have to buy everything nice. That Timex tells time just like that Rolex. Right now you can't afford it. Who say you can't buy it years from now? You can. When I was a kid, I saw people in Porsches. I went, they're so old. They got all that gray hair. They can't enjoy it like somebody like me, 19, 20, fresh. They saved their money. They've invested. They've paid off their houses. Sure, here's a check. I bought myself a Porsche. I earned this. I'm living my best life now because my kids are grown. No more $1,200 a month child care. No more $800 calculators. No more emergencies. It's me time. I travel where I want, go without the world, and when I want, how I want, and how often I want to. But that came at sacrifices. So ask yourself, if you're making a mistake over and over, why aren't I worthy? If you're not in a relationship, don't get in one until you're able to answer that question. Why aren't I worthy of a good person, an honorable person, somebody who respects me, who loves me, who treats me like I'm somebody special? Because you are worthy. You are worthy. This is the longest video I've done for a while, and if you've hung in with me for 34 minutes, this is a long, long time. But I love you. I don't know you. I love you, and I want you to do better. I want you to be happier. There are people in my life who are unhappy because of choices they made. And life is short. Even though you're 26 years, 26 years old today, it's no guarantee that you're going to be 29. You can start this foundation now. Just because you made a mistake, you made poor choices, doesn't mean you can correct that. Because your great great grandparents, your great great grandparents were slaves. My great great grandmother was a slave who bought a house. My father, if you are an immigrant from Mexico who came here with a little bit, now you have a house. If your kids don't do better than you, then their lives are failures because you have brought them this far. They don't have to go down here. You brought them this far. But if you're down here after your parents sacrificed everything, that's on you. You chose wrong. You picked wrong. You chose a brand new Mercedes instead of Toyota when you could only afford a Toyota, but you bought the Mercedes because it made you feel good. But now you're working for the Mercedes and you're unable to save for your future, for a house, for your family. It's not a death sentence. After everybody saw your Mercedes, it's a car. They're not gonna every time you drive by and go, "Oh man, look at this Mercedes. Oh man, he's got a Benz." No. Can you give me a ride down to the store, take me to the airport? It's a car. Get some gray, get some money, get the education. Choose differently. And you have to give up something. It's called sacrifice. Can't have it now. Sorry. You got kids. They need Pampers, formula, diapers. They got they got well baby care, which is expensive. You need if you don't have if if you live in some states that don't have well baby care is expensive. So since you make this baby, this other stuff has got to wait. The good news is that stuff will be out there when you're able to pay for it. If you're not in a relationship right now and all you're meeting, go look outside your neighborhood and demand what you want, not things. Honor, respect, a goal, maturity. If you keep choosing wrong, it ain't the men, it's you. You're making the choice. So if all the men you've been with are shit, that's on you. If all the women you've been with are shit, that's you. You chose that. It was warm, it felt good at the moment. And now you're tied to it. That's you. Getting mad, you can get mad, stay mad. But you can choose. This is a Rod Father. Longest video in a long, long time. If you like this video and it resonates with you, share it with your friends. Have a discussion with your friends. You can do better. You can change, but it's going to come at a sacrifice. If you have kids, that sacrifice should be number one because you don't want them. If you lived in a dysfunctional family, you don't want them to be dysfunctional. Love them more than you having some man in your life or a woman in your life. Love them more. This is the Rod Father. If you like this and other ones, hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to grow this. I want to hear what you have to say. You don't have to agree with me. It ain't that kind of party. I learn from you. Other people learn from you. Now, I'm slow about responding to it. Some of your questions you have for me, and some of you sent emails, and I do look at them, but I'm growing on these, and I'm overwhelmed by this, and I'm so appreciative that you do talk to me, and some of you tell me things that I need to hear. So, meanwhile, wishing you love, joy, peace, and happiness is a choice. You can choose to be happiness, or you can choose to be effed up. It is a choice. Meanwhile, I really thank you for watching this a long ass video. Thanks for watching. I'm out of here. Bye bye bye.